Do you think the 70 million people in the UK could outdrink the 300 million USA people? No, you guys are saying easily. I'm not even going to look it up. I'm not even going to bother proving you wrong that alcohol consumption is higher in America than it is in the UK as a whole. I don't even, the fact that I would need to look that up is absurd. It's obviously more. It's obviously more, dude. We have more drunk drivers in the UK. Yeah, but half of them can't afford cars. It's not this. We don't even know what would happen. This is a race to the bottom, dude. Okay, wait. I really do have to start. I'm sorry. I really have to start. Yeah, I really wanted to cover this election, so I'm going to do it right now. Ladies and gentlemen. Okay, wait. Sorry, I don't want to be that loud. Guys, we need to talk about a little segment called Oi Bruv in merry old England. Okay? Big news out of England. England, if you don't know, I mean, it's kind of fallen off the world stage. Maybe you forgot. England, the land of Harry Potter and James Bond and truly delicious edible food. Truly incredible food. They're the world's 5th largest economy. And their #1 export is YouTube videos about their economy collapsing. Massive growth industry, okay? These generate huge amounts of cash. And in the past, they had a massive nationwide local election, okay? All the local elections across the country, where British people went out to vote for various different parties. Now, these local elections are not for who's running the country, who's going to be the prime minister, which party is going to get its most seats in parliament. They are for, relatively unimportant local council jobs that primarily manage things like, trash bin management, they call it there. Like, the results of these elections aren't a sweeping change in how the UK is run, but they are a huge indicator of what's going on, okay? So I'm going to give you a very quick primer. There's 5 major parties involved here in the UK. I sort of ordered them from left to right, although you could probably do something like this if you were being like super pedantic. But this is the idea, okay? And for the longest time, all that mattered, much like in America, were these 2 parties, okay? These were the big 2. Now, this is going to break your brain if you're American, but the colors are switched. This is like the left-wing party, and it's red, and this is the right-wing party, and it's blue, okay? Some Americans will not be able to follow from this point on. But okay, so these are the big parties, and they went back and forth. They traded power back and forth for many decades here in the UK. And so for the past, let's say from 2010 to 2024, a 14-year period, the Tories, aka the Conservatives, this party were in power. And they basically, just to be quite clear, kind of ran the country into the ground. They kind of ran the country into the ground. I mean, it was 14 years of generally pretty agreed upon bad leadership, even among many Tory voters. Like, it was just a really poor period in Britain, these 14 years. And so in 2024, which was a year of like massive incumbents losing all over the world in 2024, and wherever the party was in incumbent power lost. And so in 2024, the incumbent party lost, and it switched over to Labour, who got power back for the first time in 14 years. Now, it's only been 2 years since then, sorry, say that again. In 2024, Labour got the power back, and it went to Keir Starmer, this guy, who said, change begins. It's time to change, okay? We've had 14 years of the wrong direction. It's time to change. Look at that big smile. So Keir Starmer comes in, and immediately, the UK populace said, wait, this sucks too. Like immediately, like within days almost of the election, popularity of Keir Starmer and his party started declining. Now, normally I would say, look, after 14 years, it's only been 2, give them some time. It's, a country does not turn around very quickly. If you wanted to make some changes, give it some time. But this has not been a normal situation for Keir Starmer. He really has been mired in controversy, poor messaging, and a wrong direction of the country in those 2 years immediately. So listen, he's a guy who I've talked to a couple British people now who they've described as having absolutely no charisma at all. He really has.
Oh, it's not on the same page.
6, 7. Yeah. 6, 7. Everybody. 6, 7. Are you doing page 6, 7?
We're not over that yet. We're not over there.
You see the teacher's eye roll?
We're not over there.
Does not seem to have a real plan for where he wants Britain to go or how to handle the challenges of the future.
With AI, Keir, think of it as like a fork.
Additionally, he got caught in a couple controversies. One where he employed this ambassador who ended up being extremely involved with Jeffrey Epstein. And again, there's like letters of him saying, you're going to do a great job. I really trust you. And it turned out to be extremely tied with Epstein. This is a big scandal that, really mired his term. He accepted more gifts than any other recent party leader. Wealthy donors were giving him football tickets and free gifts and all that. He also promised during the campaign to reduce the tax burden on the middle class. No new taxes for the middle working class. And in fact, UK taxes on wages rose more than any other rich country. So people are feeling squeezed in the UK. While this was his early drop, that was ended October, the drop has only continued. Keir Starmer has become one of the most unpopular leaders in the world, in any country. Again, I want you to understand that, like in America, I've been making many, many videos on the recent surge in unpopularity of Donald Trump. Donald Trump has had his core base starting to abandon him, people turning against him. Donald Trump's at like a 37, 38%. Keir Starmer's at 18. Keir Starmer is like half of what Trump's at. It's truly a catastrophic number. He's near the bottom of all world leaders worldwide. A little bit of context again. This is all within the larger environment of UK is collapsing. Now, again, these are a bit clickbait. These are obviously exaggerations, but I want to give you the very brief drill down here. The UK has consumer confidence as crumbled as America's. People are as upset. People are having equally hard time finding a job. People feel upset about the future, yada, yada, yada. And then in addition to that, it also has an economy that essentially is all localized in London. Britain's economy is highly London-centric. Without the capital, the UK would be poorer per head than Mississippi. Basically, if you are like a young person in the UK, you have to move to London to chase job opportunities. The number of opportunities in other cities are declining and dwindling and not available. But if you move to London, you face an impossibly unaffordable housing market. London is extremely one of the world's most unaffordable cities, especially on UK salaries. And so you're hitting this catch-22 where there's only one city with any real growth, and that city is like impossible to live in. And that's created a lot of anger and a lot of dissent within the country. So, that's the very long and short version here, but that is why people are feeling so. Again, the UK has almost all of the debt problems, all of the consumer confidence problems, all of the relative uncompetitiveness and manufacturing problems of like in America, but without the world reserve currency and like other advantages America's gained post-World War II. So it's got like the worst of both worlds. Additionally, they're getting hit with some of the same problems that they didn't even cause. So not all of this is Keir Starmer's fault. In fact, many of it's long predates his time, but he's being hit with it as well. Again, the UK of all economies is the one getting hit the most as like an energy dependent island nation from the Iran war. Now they didn't start the Iran war, but it is the one hitting them the hardest. And that's hitting right now, causing gas prices surging and food pricing surging in the UK. Additionally, the UK also made a pretty catastrophic trade decision a few years back called Brexit, where they left the EU and lost the connective trade ties that was actually really beneficial to their economy. Again, with this as the starting point, post-Brexit, the UK, the red line, went from being a leader in European economies to a severe laggard because now they are super isolated. It was economically an incredibly dumb move. Let's go back to the election. So these were the two big parties. We go into this election that just happened, and shocker, with all of this bad news around it and all the unpopularity of Keir Starmer, we just had one of the biggest protest votes of all time. Now you're seeing a lot of teal on this map because who did the UK decide is the person to lead them out of this disaster that they are currently in? Nigel Farage of Reform UK. Now, if you don't know Britain, Nigel Farage is primarily known for one thing, being the guy that made Brexit happen.
Well, Brexit represents a victory for one man, perhaps more than any other. And Nigel Farage joins us now live from an event celebrating Brexit in Parliament Square. I know it's very noisy there, but this is, as you well know, history in the making. We heard you say in that report, no turning back. How does it feel for people like you and the crowds in Parliament Square now that your dream has been realised?
Well, it's unbelievable. I mean, you see, the thing is that for all these years, the entire establishment supported membership of the EU.
I mean, go on. He is the single most responsible person for Brexit, and now is the person being turned to in this time of absolute crisis in the UK. And so, really big moment for him. He is ecstatic at the polling station. Let me break down the numbers here for you for a second. This is the net change in seats. I don't want to talk about arrows yet. The biggest gain by far comes from Reform UK, Nigel Farage's party, who gained 1,300 seats. Second most comes from the Green Party. Third most from Liberal Democratic Party. I can explain a little bit about those in a second, but massive, like literally earth-shaking gain. Again, this is a pretty much a brand new party. 4 years ago, it has nothing. It has literally almost 0 seats. And now it is the largest in terms of local council seats. Just a gigantic change. The Green Party also had some surge, though. Again, this is like the trend here is not just for this, but the trend is of the two traditional parties collapsing. The duopoly, the Labour Conservative duopoly, is collapsing, and people are searching for any other alternative. They are trying to find some change because, again, they are screaming. The Green Party was the second most gainer. They would be 5th in actual size right now, but they had the most gained in this election. I looked at their policy proposals. It's not really for me personally. There was a little bit too much rent control and anti-nuclear, but I get the gist. I get the vibe. I get why someone would support it. I think this is what I summed up for the vibe. Okay? This is how I think because the Green Party is primarily pushed for by young people in urban areas who are rightfully upset. This is the vibe I think they're feeling.
True democracy is citizen-led. Politics needs an update. We demand a people's house. We demand a people's house. We are in crisis. Our whole future is in jeopardy.
We are in crisis. Our whole future is in jeopardy. I don't know about the glitter, but the anger they're feeling is very real. I think what we're seeing is that across the UK. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. I'm not in tune on the individual names and leaders of all the UK parties, and I'm sure you have reasons if you're in the UK for different people. From what I looked at the policy, I kind of like these guys, the Orange Party, Lib Dem here, because they describe themselves as a tortoise who are slow moving and pragmatic and trying to fix things. But I don't know if it's a good guy or not. Anyway, so this is where it stands now. This is the new local council elections. Oh, by the way, I want to say one thing. The Conservative Party, the Tories, there's always been, this happened in America too with like the Conservative Party, where it's all prior, like the George Bush era, it's like a fusion of tax cuts for rich people and anti-immigrant sentiment. But once a new party comes along that steals all your anti-immigrant sentiment, all that's left is like tax cuts for rich people. Like I watched like a few days ago rally by the Conservative Party, and like literally all they're talking about is like, we're gonna get rid of property taxes for It's like that. It's not exciting to anybody. There's literally nothing. So anyway, these new results, the minus 1,100 labor seats, have got Keir Starmer a little bit hot under the collar. He's a little bit nervous, bro. And then he's facing increasing calls to resign. In fact, they even got the classic traditional British photo of you looking like a piece of shit in the back of a car. And you know it's over. Once they get one of these photos, this is British classic, bro. Once they get one of these photos, it's like, oh, you're cooked. You are cooked. So even his own party is asking him to resign because of his deep, deep unpopularity that's dragging down Labor's performance on a local level, or maybe they were doing a decent job. I don't know how Labor was doing on a local level, but they're getting crushed because of the leadership aura drawdown. So if you're Canadian, this might seem familiar to you. What you're seeing here is very, very similar to kind of what was happening with like Justin Trudeau. There's a real fuck Starmer, like fuck Trudeau type movement where he is sort of like the face of this anger that is dragging down an entire party. Now, as far as I know, Keir Starmer has never done blackface. He did the 6-7, but I don't think he's done that. It's not yet, at least. We don't know. But much like Trudeau, one major point that the opposition party, Nigel Farage here, is hammering in on. Like I looked at the top 3 issues for all the parties before I did this presentation, and the top 3 for Reform UK are all about immigration. They're all about get them out of Britain, bring British back to the British, close the border. It's all that, it's the main focus of Reform UK. And I thought that was interesting. Now, immigration is a thorny issue because like Canada, there is a real argument you can make, you should be able to see this, that in the post-2020 period, immigration got too much too fast. Again, in Canada, this is immigration for the longest time, many, many decades of around a stable amount of immigration. And during this time, Canadians were one of the most pro-immigrant friendly countries in the world. And then after 2020, it spiked a lot. And that caused that feeling, you can see here, this is the feeling, people suddenly began to disagree that immigration was a good thing at that moment. Common sense immigration reform or control or whatever is something you could theoretically support. It's not that crazy. Well, to get this guy, it's fucking insane. Because I just want you to understand, the primary thing that reform voters are complaining about is all the non-European immigrants coming into the country. I want you to know, think about it. When do you think that started happening? It turns out it's exactly when Brexit changed the new immigration system. Literally, they're just racism farming by people that caused the problem they're talking about. So I'm a little bit baffled by it, honestly, but it's something I didn't expect coming. I've been calling it for a long time, but this is just like, holy moly, to pick the very people, he's very Trumpian, where you're picking the very people who are causing a lot of the problems you're disaffected with. The Brexit paradox. This is a paper, how leaving the EU led to more migration. So interesting. So there is calls for Keir Starmer to step down. Now, if he doesn't step down, he actually has power until 2029. Will he be able to make it that long given how unpopular he is currently? I don't know. Britain is so angry already. But if he doesn't step down, he'll be there until 2029. And if he does step down, that would make 6 prime ministers in 6 years. That is how insane Britain has become. Every single year, they're tossing out a new prime minister, and not one of them can fix the underlying problems. Liz Truss lasted, not as long as a head of lettuce. And all the polling is showing that at the rate things are going, the next time there is a UK parliamentary election, the new prime minister will be Nigel Farage. Is there no one new who can step up to save Britain's problems? So I find this all to be quite comical from the outside, though very unsettling. But the question I want to pose here, for the larger situation in Europe, I want to talk about Europe real quick, because I found this post from 5 months ago from Ask Brits, where people were like, why do people act like reforms are a huge issue? They're not going to win anything anytime soon. They have no seats. And it's like, For this past year, 2 years, I've been screaming this, that there's this huge, like, that Europe's on a time delay from America. They're just dealing with the same problems, but slightly delayed. And all these Europeans have been so cavalier. Like, nah, it's like, it's headed right at you like a freight train. I just want to point out that, like, the populist right-wing anti-immigrant movements that have hit the US and are now hitting the UK are headed straight for Germany and France, as I've said over and over again. If you look at the most unpopular leaders in Europe, below Dick Schoof, you have Keir Starmer, and then even worse, Friedrich Merz of Germany, and then even worse, Emmanuel Macron of France. Okay? These are the most unpopular leaders in the world. And there's a huge, huge surge in anger there that's leading to the rise of the AfD in Germany and the RN in France. And both of them are polling in the lead were elections to be held today. And I saw this post that made me think of it. Now, I understand. I think there really is something stupid about the way these voters are picking people who are provably corrupt and provably not good at the job. I agree with that. But I also agree with this post where it's like, hey, do you think if we call them thick racists a few more times, they might vote for better candidates? I don't know. I just feel like I see this happening in Germany and in France, and it's like you are headed for the exact same problem. I do not think this will work. I legitimately think there has to be better messaging and better action around the real economic around these type of problems. These problems are what's causing the global discontent. People, it's kind of like what they say in game development, where it's like, if people complain about your game, don't trust their suggestions, but trust that there is something wrong. Like, they're good at identifying there is a problem, they don't know how to fix it. The voters are screaming that there is something wrong. They're just not really good at figuring out the right solution. So better messaging and better progress on these things are the only solution, or you're gonna get, no matter what, more things like this. In fact, the only person who has done anything to slow down the rise of this populism is Trump, because he's been so bad in the US that the right parties in these countries had to distance themselves from him. Trump has done the best to slow them down. He's the only person slowing it down, not leaders in Europe, only him. So it really is a wild issue, but that's the update on the UK elections. I hope that gave you a little insight into what's going on in Europe. We'll follow it up as more comes along, but thanks for watching. I am on a bit of a trip, but I'll be back soon. Get back. I really like what I was doing in February. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Appreciate you. Peace. How do you say goodbye in the UK? How do you say goodbye in British? Cheerio.